They just shattered all of their kind of limiting beliefs. I go, so let's remember, 5 minutes ago, you were telling me you couldn't do it. It was impossible. Look up there, look down here. You have irrefutable proof that what you thought was impossible was just bullshit in your head. Your sense of limitations are things that you make up. You're the only thing that's in the way of you and your life. Now, think about it right now. Where else in your life right now are you being held back by your own stuff that you've made up?
What
And
else
the
is
light bulb
possible?
goes on.
Welcome to Career Coaching Secrets, the podcast where we talk with successful career coaches on how they built their success and the hard lessons they learned along the way. My name is Davis Wynn, and I'm the founder of Purple Circle, where we help career coaches scale their business to $100,000 years, $100,000 months, and even $100,000 weeks. Before Purple Circle, I've grown several 7- and 8-figure career coaching businesses myself, and have been a consultant at 2 career coaching businesses that are doing over $100 million each. Whether you're an established coach or building your practice for the first time, you'll discover the secrets to elevating your coaching business.
Welcome to Career Coaching Secrets Podcast. I'm Kevin, and today we are joined by Chris Majer. Pre-podcast, we were talking about he's been in the industry since the 80s, and I did some quick math, and that's over 45 years. He's also the founder of Human Potential Project. Is that right, Chris?
Right. That's it. Pretty
Sorry
simple.
Sorry
Rolls
for
right off
butchering.
the tongue, doesn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. Welcome to the show, Chris.
Thanks. Glad to be here.
Yeah, I'm glad to have you here because it's not every day that we have someone so experienced with coaching. And so one of the questions I have is like, let's start at the beginning. Let's start off with the lore. What was the moment that made you realize you want to become a coach and start a business from it?
I went to the University of Washington. My senior year, I was captain of the rugby team, and I went on to play for another 8 or 9 years for a first division club here in Seattle. Every year, we had our big deal of the year was there was an invitational tournament down in Monterey, California. Right, so we'd fly down there every spring for this big thing. And one spring, we're ready to go. I get to the airport and I went, oh crap, the book that I was reading, I'd left on my bedside table. I don't have anything to do on the plane. And I'm not the kind of guy who can stare out the window for 2.5 hours or read the airplane magazine 5 times. So what did I do? What everybody else would do? I went to the bookstore. I'll get another book. And strange as this will sound, I had for want of a better phrase, a mystical experience in the bookstore at the Seattle-Tacoma airport, not the place you would associate normally with these sorts of things.
Definitely not.
So I'm sitting there looking at the wall of books. We've all been there. There's the bodice rippers and the thrillers and the histories and all this kind of stuff. And way up and literally in the top back corner, this little book, and I swear it started talking to me. And this was before there was any such thing as audiobooks or anything. So I'm kind of looking around going, what the hell? But it's literally talking inside my head, explaining that I needed to get this book. Well, okay. So I pulled it down. It was called The Ultimate Athlete by a guy I'd never heard of named George Leonard.
Mm.
And I thought, well, this is perfect. Of course, it's talking to me. I'll learn something useful to take on my trip to Monterey and improve my play, and so forth and so on. So I got on the plane, started reading this book, and was a little perplexed as he was talking about things I'd never heard of. Intentionality, synchronicity, some weird Japanese energy called ki, and a martial art called Aikido I'd never heard of. And I kind of thought, well, this is not going to be particularly useful, this weekend, but I like it. It resonated with me. So I kind of filed that away, and 6 or so months later, I finally had to grow up. I was now just turned 30, and I thought, well, maybe it's time to both grow up and get serious about life, and be my body wasn't going to take all this rugby much longer. So I remembered the book. I took up the study of Aikido. I met a guy there who was a sports psychologist. Now remember, it's the early 80s when sports psychology was still seen as something akin to voodoo or black magic. And he and I got to be buddies and just comparing stories. And I really liked talking with him because he had scientific explanations for experiences that I had had and just written off as too many bangs on the head or flashbacks to the 60s, right?
Mhm.
So we were just young and naive enough to not know it was impossible. And we decided to start a company. And our original mandate was really simple. My partner had been a world-class skier, been on the K2 demonstration team, et cetera, et cetera. I was a rugby player. I had more team experience. He had more individual experience. And our audience that we were after was strictly with athletes. That was it. We wanted to work with athletes because we were interested in pushing the boundaries of human performance. And it was in that arena where not only was it permitted, but expected that that's what you were going to do.
Mhm.
So we took the lessons that we'd gotten from our Aikido, Eastern meditative, contemplative, energetic practices, blended it with Western psychological practices, physiological stuff, and basically crafted a nouveau version of the old Greek model, mind, body, spirit. Right?
Mm.
So we went to work with individual athletes, and we were doing some tremendous stuff. I mean, dramatic performance improvements by doing off-field work. And we had one little problem, which is that in those days, Nike and Adidas and all those didn't exist the way they do today. So all of our clients were amateurs, ergo they were broke. So doing great work, not getting paid. Flaw in the business plan.
Yeah.
So we turned our attention to teams, and here we saw the same thing you've seen, probably participated in. We could take a group of individual players who, as individual players, were terrific, put them together on a team, the team would stink. We go, okay, that makes no sense. Where's this vaunted synergy and so forth? So we built out a body of work and crafted the term team cohesion in 1984 and went to work with national teams, Olympic teams, professional teams. And much to our surprise, that caught the attention of the Army. Right now,
Wow.
yeah, these were different days. So in short order, found myself down at scenic Fort Hood, Texas. If you've never been there, keep it that way. And and I was in this room full of colonels and stuff, and they were telling me about all these problems they'd had. And I'll give you kind of the longer version because it's kind of amusing, you know, helpful insights. So talking to these guys, and they kept making reference to the work that we'd done with the Dallas Cowboys. And I'm sitting there thinking, we didn't do anything with Dallas Cowboys. We worked with the Seahawks, but not the Cowboys. So we keep going, keep going. And finally, I realized they think I'm somebody else. So, uh, so probably not the right time to disabuse them of that notion. So yeah, me and Roger Starbuck, yeah, we're like that. Yep, we double date everything. So yeah, exactly. So they're going on explaining about all these dilemmas they've got, sick calls and Article 15s and soldiers who are overweight and they can't pass a physical fitness test and morale's lousy and all this stuff. And they've got a remedial program for every one of these things, and they're not really working all that well. So they brought us in to just talk about how to improve physical PT, physical training test scores.
Mhm.
And we listened to all this, and we finally said, look, here's your central dilemma. You guys are still in the hangover from Vietnam, all right? And your solution has been to send all of your junior and mid-grade officers to business school to learn management practices, which they've done. They've done well, but they come back and implement these nouveau management practices with soldiers, okay? You don't manage soldiers to fight and die for you. That requires leadership. Leadership and management are not the same thing, okay?
Yes.
So part of your management training is you try and take everything down to root cause, right? So that's why you've got all these different remedial programs. And it's also why they don't work, because in taking it apart, you lost sight of the whole cloth. Okay. So we think that we could actually solve all these things for you at the same time.
Mm.
And they looked at me like I was nuts, that RCA dog look, and like, oh. And I said, yeah. So, well, okay, that's cool. How much is it going to cost? Well, how the hell should I know? We just made it up. You were here. That's not like I'm the Campbell's soup guy and here's tomato. So they said, well, take a lunch break and come back with a budget. I said, well, okay. So we went to the Sizzler restaurant there in Killeen, Texas. And we're living large. We're living large. And got out my yellow pad, and this was the classic angel and devil conversation, because I'm making up numbers, and this guy's going, "Wait a minute, aren't you the guy who complains about the $400 hammers?" And this guy, "Oh, well, relax, we'll get in there and talk about it and work it all out." So I built this budget. I think it was like $109,000 for this 90-day program. Now, in 1982, that was a lot of money.
Mm.
So we go back in. I present the budget, and I notice it's getting increasingly quiet as I get down towards the bottom. So I get done, and nobody says a word, and I'm kind of going rut-row. And the colonel in charge turns to the guy next to him and says, "Well, Colonel, what do you think?" "Well, frankly, sir, I'd rather not say in front of him." And I'm just going, "Oh, great job, greedhead. Now you did it." And he says, "No, no, look, if we're going to do something, let's do something. If we're not, let's not. What do you think?" "Well, frankly, sir, we could take the armor assigned to the test unit in question, fire it up, and let it idle for 15 minutes and burn $110,000. That's nothing." And the other colonel says, "Yeah, that's what I was concerned about. Are you guys sure you thought about everything?" And I'm sitting here going, "Oh my God." I'm so embarrassed. Silly me. I was never that good at math. I forgot to carry the one. It's a million. So that was too late to do that. So 6 weeks later, I had a sole source contract with the United States Army. Now, I'll pause there because there was not so much a decision to be in the coaching business as we were more in the transformation business, and coaching was a tool, right?
Mm.
And the big lesson that I learned here, note to all would-be coaches, was know your customer. All right. So to my then customer, $110,000 was barely a rounding error on things. And to kind of emphasize that point, being very subtle, when we got done, the colonel in charge said to one of the junior officers, "Take these guys out, give them a little tour around base, and make sure you go down the motor pool road." I'm thinking, okay, whatever. It sounds like hazing or something. So
Yeah.
get in the back of this vehicle and we drive all around and we drive down the motor pool and then I got it. The motor pool at Fort Hood's about a mile long, about 2 blocks wide, and sitting out there baking in the sun in the middle of Texas, it was wall to wall stuff. Artillery pieces, vehicles, things I had no idea what they were, billions and billions of dollars worth of stuff just sitting there. And I finally got, they're in a completely different game than what I'm trying to do here. So know your customer. Right. So we did work with those guys. We set all kinds of records, got in a political fight that wasn't of our making. And I then got a communication one day. I'm sitting in my office, phone rings, and I pick it up. "Mr. Major, this is Sergeant Schmedlap. Colonel Potter would like to speak with you." I'm sitting there going, "Colonel Potter, Colonel Potter. That's that guy on MASH. Come on, knock it off." So I thought it was one of my goofball rugby playing buddies, so I hung up on him. That was not a good idea. Yeah. So he calls back a minute later in a slightly different tone of voice. "Mr. Majer, this is Sergeant and Colonel William Potter of the 10th Special Forces Group would like to speak with you, sir, and really doesn't appreciate being hung up on." Yeah. "How do you like me so far?" They call me Mr. Smooth. So I get to talking to the colonel, and this led to that. And of course, I'm in Seattle. He's in Fort Devens, which is out in Massachusetts.
Massachusetts.
So
Yeah.
can't get much farther away.
I've been there.
So yeah, he flies me out. It was a great experience. This was back in the days when you could meet people at the gates on airplanes. And so I was met by these 4 big special forces guys. I'm not a little guy. I'm 6'4", 220 pounds.
Oh, wow.
These were some big guys, right? And the special forces guys don't have all that decoration all over their uniforms. They just have a unit insignia and they have a green beret in their epaulette, and there we go. So walking through the airport, me in the middle and the 4 of them around me was really great. The way people looked at me, it's like, finally, they got Carlos the terrorist. It's about time. And we get to baggage claim and everybody moves away. And I'm going, I could get used to this. So, yeah, long story, we ended up with a year-long classified project with the Special Forces, programmatic mandate, push the boundaries of human performance.
Wow.
And we spent 3 months designing the program, 6 months delivering it. We had 2 A teams under our operational control, 24 hours a day for 6 months. And 3 months to kind of report and analyze on it. And at the end of that, I said to my guys, we've been fortunate. We've had an opportunity to build a body of work that's proven effective with athletes and soldiers, 2 arenas in which performance matters and where you can measure it. I don't want to spend my career training soldiers. Now, let me be clear. The actual work of training the soldiers was the best stuff we ever did. The guys are absolutely amazing. The process of getting to do it was just odious, the government contracting process. And I didn't feel like having to hire 5 people to do contract compliance. So we're going to turn our attention to a different game called business. And this one's going to actually be more challenging. And they all looked at me
Mm,
like I was nuts. They said, I don't mean physically nitwits. Think about it this way. In business, there's no timeout, stand down, off season, spring training, any of that kind of stuff. The game goes all the time. And on any given team, there's a vast gap in the level of competence and commitment on the part of the players. So, how do we work in that arena? We built out a corporate program, tested it on a little subcontractor of Boeing's. My second client was AT&T.
mm,
So I went from nowhere to center ring in the circus. I went from 5 guys to 85 guys in 6 months. And as I tell everybody without fear of contradiction, I made every stupid mistake you can make in trying to grow a business, and it succeeded oftentimes despite my best efforts.
mm,
So we put thousands of people through this intensive training program, and the results were extraordinary. But to circle this long story back around to coaching, what we came to see was that we could change all the elements of the culture, but if we didn't actually change the leadership practices, wouldn't stick, right?
mm,
So this is where we got down to, all right, so we were basically doing what we called sheep dip, right? Put hundreds of people through the same 5.5 day program and then follow up and blah, blah, blah. And again, it produced extraordinary results. But for the longevity, we needed to get to the leaders. And they saw that. So we began doing one-on-one work. And I think the critical distinction for us in those days, in time now, it's the late 80s. The coach was kind of the last unassailed institution in society in those days. You know,
mm,
presidents, Nixon, tarnished all that, and corporate leaders tarnished. But the coach was still seen as someone kind of on a pedestal.
mm,
And the fundamental difference that we articulated between, quote, business coaching and sports coaching, because everybody wanted to, oh, well, let's learn from some sports coaches. In sports, they coach doing. Here's what you need to do to be better. Okay. Do this, move your feet that way, put your hands this way, la, 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 la. In business, to coach leadership, we had to coach being. Who do you need to be to produce this kind of stuff? And that's a completely different game.
mm.
The fundamental distinction in coaching is the coach isn't necessarily a better player, right? I mean, if you look at any NFL team, none of those
That's
coaches
true.
could play, right? He's not a better player. But what he is he's a better observer, right? He sees things that you don't. And that's the part that matters. And everybody that, we worked with, and I would go through, oh Lord, 20 guys who wanted to be coaches till I could find one that might have a shot at it, because they all thought the fundamental skill was their great articulation, their capacity to speak. And then I said, no, the number one skill in being a coach is learning to listen. And in particular, you have to learn, this is going to sound like some Zen koan, you have to learn to listen to what isn't being said.
Yeah.
Okay. That's your high leverage value point, right? And if you're all worried about how you say something really crafty or clever, or how you get right in there with some insightful comment, you're not listening. All you're
Mm.
doing is waiting for your opportunity to talk, and that's not the same thing.
It's really interesting because I actually I'm a big martial arts guy. One of the things I'm really into right now is jujitsu and stuff.
Yep.
And one of the best coaches in the world, he blew the world away through leg locks. Leg locks were one of those things that was like forbidden. It was like, oh, very like you're stigmatized. You're like, oh, you're cheap, like you're a cheater and all that sort of stuff. But he started taking the jujitsu world like crazy. And you want to know the ironic thing about him?
Please.
One of his legs is crippled, actually. So it's like
Ah,
a cripple guy teaching other people how to cripple others' legs, which is quite funny. But it goes back to what you're saying about like, oh, what is not being said? And oftentimes they're not the best athletes, or performers, but they're really great observers, and I really relate to what you were saying. Now, what I'm really curious about, because you had that crazy experience with the army and all that, and the
Mhm.
special forces, and you got all these crazy contracts, which was amazing. Like, who do you kind of help now, I guess, these days, in modern day, if we're bringing it back to
Well,
like
you know,
20?
we grew the business up, it was a multi-million dollar enterprise,
Oh,
right?
wow.
Until COVID happened.
Mm,
Because everything that we did was delivered live. And COVID effectively killed that whole thing.
really? How so?
Well, nobody was doing it. We couldn't get together. We couldn't get people in a room for, Lord knows how long. It'll just be 2 weeks. It'll just be 2 weeks. It still hasn't come back, to the
Mm,
way it was prior to that. So nowadays, I do a lot of one-on-one work. We do a lot of work with some VCs, helping target, potential high growth companies and then working on their leadership, right? The dilemma they've got is, all these guys who are founders, of course, are brilliant at something, but the problem is they tend to think they're brilliant at everything, and
mhm,
they're not. So working with those guys, I've got a couple of big corporate clients that I do some executive coaching with, and we're still
mhm,
plugging away at trying to get some of our bigger programs back and going. It's just been kind of slow going of
mm.
late.
I'm kind of curious too, because you've been in the industry for quite a while. And so I'm sure things like marketing have changed over the years. I'm in the
Oh
80s,
yeah,
there was no social media, right?
right.
And so I guess like how did people used to find you and how do people kind of find you nowadays to work with you?
In quote the old days, like you said, there was no social media,
Mhm,
and our marketing consisted strictly of word of mouth
mm,
because we produce extraordinary results. And in a big company, the guy in charge of this division that we just skyrocketed would talk to the guys next door or so forth. And, that's how we worked our way through a goodly portion of AT&T and Cargill and Capital One, a whole bunch of really great companies. And that all, again, died with COVID and the disruption of
mhm,
that. Today, as you well know, the marketplace is noisy. There's a gazillion people claiming to be coaches because they took a weekend course or something, which makes me furious, but let's not go there. And it's difficult to get through the chatter, the noise, because the dilemma is the customer, the person who might be seeking a coach, doesn't really know what he or she is looking for. Well,
mm,
I need some assistance with something. So it's difficult for them to discern, well, who's good, who's not so good, who's really going to be able to work with me, etc. And we do some direct email outreach, but a lot of my business is still word of mouth.
mm,
People trust other people. So the executives at this company know the executives at that company. Hey, you guys should talk to this major character. He's
mm.
on something here.
Are there any types of marketing that you've kind of dabbled with or experimented with and it kind of didn't work out? I'm very curious about that.
uh, yeah, remember, I've been at this for a long time.
Mhm,
So there is no type of marketing that I haven't experimented with or spent money on, really.
mm,
And to be blunt about it, I've never found anything that was particularly effective. I
really?
mean, I've been on the Today Show, McNeil Laird, Charlie Rose, and Men's Health, Esquire, boom, 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 boom. Nothing.
Hmm.
We don't bother with advertising because you got to have massive budgets to be able to do any kind of effective advertising. But to me, it's all come down mostly to some person who's had a good experience with us tells another person.
Mm,
And, it helps if you've got a little background drum beat. Oh, yeah, I heard of those guys. I heard of those guys. Tell me again, who are they? What do they do? That kind of stuff. But I've not ever found a particularly effective marketing methodology that's
mm.
consistently produced results. I
What's your
wish I had a different answer.
no, no, I mean, honestly, I appreciate your experience, and it's really interesting to see how, I guess in this case, how things haven't changed, how it's been so referral based as well. Okay. And I guess what's the hardest part? Well, you kind of alluded to it, right? There's just so much noise. I'm not sure if you figured out the solution to it, but what are some things that you've been trying to do to like stand out from all the noise, I guess?
Well, the one thing that I've got going for me that nobody else can touch
Hmm.
is I've been around for a while.
That's true.
We've got a record of success that nobody's ever going to be able to match just because I got such a head start.
Mm,
And I've got case studies and documented evidence and video testimonials from CEOs, and it's shocking to me when we send people to look at this stuff and they go, oh, well, I don't know if I believe that. I go, yeah, right. The CEO of Allianz is lying, right? That when I put him on tape, right? Or the CFO of, Columbia House, he's lying when he makes this stuff up. What's wrong with you guys? And you look at the numbers and they can't believe the numbers that we can produce.
mm,
And I understand because what everybody's used to is these little narrow solutions. It's like the same dilemma we had with the Army.
mm,
Well, we got this program and that program and this and that and this and that and this and that, but there's no coherence to it.
mm,
It's just shotgun of, well, we got this and we got that, and we got this. When we worked with
mm.
Allianz Life, the
Insurance.
CEO, they had a brand new young CEO. Okay, nice guy. He inherited a slightly dysfunctional executive team, and they asked us to come in and sort that out, which we did in a way that surprised everybody. And I'm not kind of the shy guy. I'm like, well, here's your dilemma. You got at least two, maybe three guys on this team that have got to go. Sorry, that's just the way it is.
Mm,
And okay, we did that, got them all turned around. And then, they had this very ambitious vision for the future. So he turned to the HR director and said, listen, I've been really impressed with the work that these guys have done with us. What program that we are doing can you look at and guarantee me is going to get us to our vision accomplished? And to her credit, she thought about it and said, well, if that's your standard, then the answer is none of them. He said, yeah, that's what I thought. So here's what we're going to do. He says, I want you to put a full stop on everything that isn't job specific training.
mm,
Cancel all these coaching contracts because they got 48 different types of coaching, all the
mm,
program, that program is, and we're going to put everybody in the company through this HP2 program. And we took, I think it was about 2,000 people over the course of a year through step down versions of the work. The summary of this is classic. So at a shareholder meeting, one of these activist shareholders who's all full of himself is trying to, goad Mark. And he says, look, explain to all of us why you spent $10 million on this HP2 stuff. This looks like a bunch of, you know, touchy-feely bullshit. Yeah, we spent $10 million on that and documented a $650 million return. Any more questions?
hmm,
Mic drop, end of conversation. And we have him documented saying that. And people are like, well, yeah, I don't know if that's really, we're, if you're too successful, nobody believes it. Well, because we have this comprehensive approach. You take on all sorts of things that normally you don't necessarily associate that would go together, but it's all about how you transform a culture,
mm.
right?
It's really interesting to see how enthusiastic you are about like optimizing people's full potential. And find that very refreshing. Which leads me actually to my next question, because you've been in the industry for about 45 years, right? You've had these incredible contracts in the past. I guess where do you kind of want your coaching business to take you in the next few years? I mean, do you have any big secrets, big ambitions? What's on your mind in terms of that?
Well, it's a good question. For me, I'm sitting here looking and I have a, a short-term future horizon, right? So I'm looking at two things. One, I need to find somebody that I can entrust to take it over
Mm,
because we have built a very, very robust IP base. I mean, we've got content and practices and distinctions that would keep people busy for years, right?
mm,
But in the moment, I don't have anybody in the queue to kind of say, okay, this is great, and here's how I can see that we can take it forward. So that's
Mm,
one thing that I'm looking for.
I see.
And I'm still looking for the opportunity. I want to do some more of our old time work. You said something about passion, and I'll tell you about that. So in the what we call our intensive program, which is kind of our flagship offer, it's a 4.5 day residential, goes from 7 in the morning till 9 at night. We call it the intensive because it's intense.
Yes.
Catchy title, right?
Yeah.
And it's supposed to be, right? You shake people up, get them out of their comfort zone, get them outside. We do a lot of outdoor work. We do ropes courses as part of it, but we have a very special way that we do them. And one of my complaints about the business today is you got a whole bunch of people who don't actually know what they're doing. Right? I mean, you can take somebody out and do a little ropes course, and it's like, well, you might as well go to Disneyland and go on the rides. It's not the adrenaline burst that we're after. So I'll give you an example. So we do an event. Everybody's kind of got their own version of it. We call it the Pamper Pull because most people wish they were wearing Pampers while they did it. And they climb up on a tree that's been topped. It's about 30 feet, and it's kind of swaying there, and there's a little disc on top. You got to get yourself up on the disc and then dive off through space and grab this trapeze. And you hear, oh, I can't do it. It's so hard. It's good. Yeah, that's right. And then there's this whole thing called coaching. Here's how we get you up to do it, right? So look, here's the goal. The goal is not to necessarily grab the trapeze. We don't frankly care about that. The goal is to get absolutely to the edge of your comfort zone, wherever that is, and then just take one more step. Because when you take that one more step, you transcend, it's like dimensions. You step into a different space and you
Mm,
can literally feel it in your body. And so you watch somebody take that one more step and they're like, oh, that's it. Right. That was cool. Now, since you're already up there, take one more.
might as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, okay. Okay. And pretty soon you get them all the way up there. And, how do I get down? Well, it's right there, about 6 or 8 feet out there in space. You dive off and grab that trapeze. They got 3 belay lines on them. So but they're hanging from their back, though, and your body's kind of not quite clear about this whole thing.
Yeah.
And I said, even if you're suicidal, you can't hurt yourself. So,
Mhm.
so
Yeah.
let that go. All right. But the body is still having its experience, so they dive off, catch them now. Now, here's the thing, and what gives me the passion is when they come off of that thing, we get them down, and I get a hold of them, and I look in their eyes, and you can see in their eyes, if you know what you're looking for, there's a big opening there. All right. They've just shattered all of their kind of limiting beliefs. I go, so let's
Mm,
remember, 5 minutes ago, you were telling me you couldn't do it. It was impossible. Look up there. Look down here. You have irrefutable proof that what you thought was impossible was just bullshit in your head. Your sense of limitations are things that you make up. You're the only thing that's in the way of you and your life. Now, think about it right now. Where else in your life right now are you being held back by your own stuff that you've made up?
what
And
else
the
is
light bulb
possible?
goes on, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But there's like well, I don't want to get too detailed here, but there's like about a 30-second, 45-second window you've got to make that connection and do it. Otherwise, they get caught back on ground and the people and all this kind of stuff.
Mm,
So, you ask me, what is it that gives me passion? It's like watching that moment in somebody's face when I'm clear their life just changed.
mm. Okay. We talked about it a lot. This is the last segment before I have to go. I would like
As
to
long as we
know.
have pressing business here.
No, I love these stories. They're so insightful. And honestly, we could probably go on for another 2 hours, just with the content and stories and all that. But I'm very curious, since you've been so long in the game, what's your best investment that you made for your business and the worst investment that you made that you kind of wish you got your money back, for your business? Could
Oh boy.
be training, coaching, ad spend, whatever, masterminds, anything at all. But what comes to mind?
Well, I can answer the second one first because I'm really clear about the worst investment I ever
Oh yeah.
made. Well, My passion is designing, delivering, even kind of like selling the programs, but somebody's got to administer the business, right? And it couldn't be me because I was gone half the time out doing the stuff. So after some searching, I found a guy that I thought was really good and hired him. And he was really great whenever he was talking to me. But it turns out as soon as I was gone, he was a real jackass to the staff, and they all hated him. But nobody would say much to me about it because it's like, well, you hired him, so you must really, So like, oh, great. So anyway, that turned into a great big disaster. It turned out the guy, in addition to being kind of useless and what's the technical term, a prick, was still. So, yeah, so I fired his ass, But that was the worst money that I ever spent. He was expensive too. The
Mm.
best money. When I was poo-pooing marketing earlier, but we had a one time, and unfortunately, they were so successful that the big companies came and poached all their top people. But we worked with a PR agency in Seattle years and years ago, and they were actually quite good. And they got, they're the ones who got me on the Today Show and Charlie Rose and
Ooh,
all of this
yeah.
other stuff, and that was they were terrific. But as I said, unfortunately, they were so good that, Microsoft came and grabbed a couple because this was the early days when Microsoft was growing to be their internal people, and so the
So they,
firm kind of disappeared. But they were terrific.
man, so they poached him. It sounds
Yeah,
like.
yeah.
Oh, Chris, where do people find you and connect with you?
Well, it's not that tough. You can get on our website, humanpotentialproject.com. I've got my own website because I do some speaking engagements at chrismajer.com. If you want to get a background on some of our fundamental stuff, you can get on Amazon, get my book, The Power to Transform. Um, and if you can't find any of those things, then you're not trying hard enough. It's not that hard.
You definitely need to do more. I don't know if you're doing content, but you definitely need to do content marketing and just like tell these stories because that is part of legacy. And like these stories, if once you're gone, they're gone forever, dude. So I'm not sure
Yeah.
if you're doing it, but I would highly
Well,
recommend.
we're posting little video clips up on TikTok and Instagram and Facebook and LinkedIn. So you can find us on all those sites, Human Potential
Hmm,
Project.
cool.
They're everywhere. They're everywhere.
Thank you so much for all the stories. I really laughed a lot. I really wish I had like some sort of drink with me or something like that. Yeah, but hopefully we get you on for a part two or something. This was really, really fun, Chris. I
Yeah,
really appreciate
happy
it.
to.
Yeah,
I enjoy it. I'm glad you
cool.
found it useful.
Yeah.
That's it for this episode of Career Coaching Secrets. If you enjoyed this conversation, you can subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you're listening to this episode to catch future episodes. This podcast was brought to you by Purple Circle, where we help career coaches scale their business to $100,000 years, $100,000 months, or even $100,000 weeks, all without burning out and making sure that you're making the impact and having the life that you want. To learn more about our community and how we can help you, visit joinpurplecircle.com.